evening and welcome to Small Business Distance Learning. My name is Tom Gunn. I'm the Executive Director of the Arizona Small Business Association. Tonight's broadcast is a cooperative effort by Arizona State University's College of Business Center for the Advancement of Small Business, the Arizona Small Business Development Center Network, the Arizona Small Business Association, and Arizona Public Service. Our goal is to bring you a continuing series of interactive small business workshops for the Arizona small business community throughout the state. We'll provide this series via satellite uplink from the ASU campus and then downlinked to colleges and community college sites all over the state. The public is invited to attend tonight's broadcast, as well as students of the ASU Center for the Advancement of Small Business, clients of the SBDC network, members of the Arizona Small Business Association, and high school student chapters of FBLA, that's Future Business Leaders of Arizona. Our guest speaker for this evening is Bill Johnson. Bill began his sales career in a small retail store in the Texas Panhandle. As a business major at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, he continued with Capitol Records Distributing. After military service, Bill joined Fortune 500 Ampex Corporation and held district and regional sales positions in both Atlanta and Dallas. He was honored as Salesman of the Year as a district manager. He then became national sales manager of that same firm in Chicago. As president of an audio-visual production firm in Phoenix, Bill produced programs by over 100 of the nation's top speakers and seminar leaders, including Tom Hopkins, Patricia Fripp, Mark Victor Hansen, Paul Harvey, Ron Willingham, and Naomi Rode. Bill now assists companies and associations in sales, customer service, and management challenges. Please welcome Bill Johnson.
Bill. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, and thanks for the invitation. This is great, and boy, do we have a crowd here tonight of all of the above that you mentioned, Tom. Thanks. How many of you think you'd like to be a professional salesperson? All you folks out in the distant places, raise your hand so everyone in the room knows, so I don't find myself just talking. Okay. Well, I hope even if you do or even if you don't, I'm hopeful that by the time we finish our time together, you will say, you know, that selling could be okay. I don't know about you all, but I learned to snow ski, I decided as a gift to me when I was about 56 years old. Now, I know some of you don't believe I could possibly be that old, but, and I'm up at Flagstaff at the Snow Bowl, and I end up in this snowbank. And the problem is when you become chronologically enhanced, that means old, like I am, you have difficulty with things that you didn't have difficulty before. Primarily, when you fall snow skiing, it's kind of hard to get up, and I learned that. And for about the 10th time, I'm in a snowbank up at Snow Bowl and fall down, and it's harder to get up. And I said, you know, I think skiing is sort of like selling. It's more fun after you know how. And I will mention to you that selling is one of the most fun things I've done in my life. I started when I was a teenager. It's all I've done. I became good at it, made a good living at it. But it started becoming real fun when I learned more about it. So what we're going to talk about tonight are four points. It's called The Way Pros Sell Today. I think that's the topic. The way pros sell today. And the pros is somewhat of an acronym. An acronym are the four things we really need to do in preparing in selling. First, the P in the acronym, the P in the pros, that's on your handout. I hope everyone in all the sites has handout. The P is how we prepare. How do we prepare to meet the client? How do we prepare for the prospect? I'll use the term prospects and clients interchangeably. Typically, something I refer to as for both, a prospect or a client. And then the R is how we review the prospect's wants or needs, desires or needs, so we know something about how to do a presentation. And then the O is how do we give an organized presentation? What is the structure? Because my whole philosophy and with you tonight is in this rather short time we have together to talk about these steps and to encourage you in selling anything to use a system, to follow a system. Be prepared. Know how to review wants and needs. How to give an organized presentation. And then the last is how to secure an order. How to ask for the order. How to ask for the business. Or to be sure, how to ask for a relationship. A new relationship. And by the way, this not only works if you're selling on the front line, whatever it is you might sell, tangible or intangible, or whether you're a person trying to sell a minister selling a congregation, an accountant selling your services, whatever it might be, practice development as they call it in accounting or in the law, or maybe it's new prospect or client, business development as they call it in banks, but it all is selling. Now I would ask a show of hands in the room. It also works at a singles bar or at a church social. Anyone in the room? Is there anyone in the room that's single? Okay, in all your sites, raise your hands, because this is a good matchmaking opportunity. Are there any of you in the room that would like to be single? No, you better not. You better not respond to that, because this is being recorded and fed. Okay, so we're going to talk about then what motivates people to buy. And people are motivated to buy with two things. One is emotion, and the other is logic. Now, most people, if you go to some stores, most salespeople, most clerks, as opposed to a professional, think that people buy with logic as their motivator. Wrong. People buy with emotion as their motivator. For my 66th birthday, and I'm a pretty logical, rational person. Some of you in this room have known me a while. And people would likely say, well, Bill Johnson is a logical type buyer. Wrong. I gave myself a special gift for my 66th birthday. And I want to have you tell me, we're going to show you what I gave myself. And I want you to tell me, do you think this was driven by logic or emotion? If you can bring up the picture, please. For my 66th birthday, that will be a year ago in just a few weeks, I gave myself a free fall, 13,500-foot skydive. Now, those guys holding on to me, someone said, did they really have to push you out of the plane and go with you? And I said, no, they go along for the ride till I pull the ripcord, and then they're out of there. And it's all my baby. But I got to free fall for 5,000 feet at 120 miles an hour out in the Arizona desert, and that's a lot of fun. Well, do you think that was driven by emotion or logic? 110% emotion. I'd wanted to do it since I was 20 years old, 19 maybe. And I finally got to do that thing. And it was great. Didn't want to do it but once, but it was great. I've been asked all sorts of very funny questions, which I won't repeat. Well, people love to buy. People buy on logic, people buy on emotion. But the key is, people love to buy. These were the words of one of my first mentors, Bill Gove. People love to buy if they like and or respect the person they're buying from. It's just as simple as that. People love to buy if they like and or respect the person they're buying from. Now, if they like you and respect you, that's really good. But if they're buying a technical product and you're an engineer and you know a lot about this product, they're going to buy just because of what you know and they respect your knowledge. But if they like you as a person, it reinforces and makes it better for you. And it'll make the sales process work a lot better. So what I'll show you tonight are some ideas, some tips, a mini course, if you would, on some ideas about how we can do these 4 steps. Now, I'm going to ask you to participate with me a minute. I'm going to ask you to play a small fantasy game. And the small fantasy game is, I'm going to have you play like, now out at the other sites, I want you to do this. Get your pencil, get your paper in your hand. And here's the deal. Person knocks on your door and says, hi, I'm the Executive Vice President of the Business Aircraft Association of America. And you have been chosen. You have been chosen for 1 year to be given by our organization for 1 year, all your own, to do with what you want, a brand new airplane. Anyone got that fantasy in your mind? Brand new airplane. Now, you may keep this airplane for a year from the day you take delivery. The airplane is totally certified. Everything is perfect. All regulations, pilot or pilots, everything's included. All we want to know from you is please tell us 3 features you'd like this airplane to have. Please write down those 3 features you would like the plane to have. Please don't copy from your next door neighbor. Take 60 seconds, please, and do that. Close the door. Okay. Now, Tom, if you'd help us out a minute and man the chalkboard, I'd like to get some folks' responses, and out at the satellite locations, if you'll do the same thing, please, or at least itemize them, or just watch us. What's first item on your list, please?
Cushy seats.
Cushy seats. Ma'am?
I have reclining seats.
Real. It's late in the day, right? Everyone's thinking about their seat. Cushy seat, reclining seat. And Kurt, if you'd help Tom out, he won't be able to spell some of these words. But as Mark Twain once said, man who only knows one way to spell a word isn't very smart. What was the other seat? Reclining seat. What about you, ma'am?
I had that new security landing system they were talking about on.
All right. Electronic automated landing system. Let's just say Deluxe ILS.
Okay.
How about you, sir?
Said comfortable interior.
I'm sorry?
Comfortable interior.
Comfortable interior. Yes, sir.
Cargo door.
Cargo door.
How am I going to make money if I can't sell it?
Cargo door, okay. How about you?
I've got fuel efficient.
Fuel efficient, okay. Would you, well, that's okay.
Cargo door.
Cargo door. Let's be more specific if you could, because if we're going to use this in a sales process, we need to be more specific. Tell me something to make it fuel efficient that you could mention. Like you have a specific type engine or power plant for it. You just want to be sure it's fuel efficient.
I just want to make sure that I got enough gas to go around.
You want to be sure, okay, you want to be sure there's enough gas. Okay, but see, you have certified pilots, and that's their job. Yes, sir.
What a phone.
Telephone, okay.
Powerful engine?
Powerful engine. You and this guy need to get together, and you all decide and get together what you mean by this, because this is, okay, because you want it to go fast. Well, could you say how fast, for example? Would you be willing to say? Oh, Mach 2. Mach 2. How about back here? Yes, sir, in the middle. Attractive flight attendants. All right. Do you care, he or she? It doesn't matter. Just attractive female, Tom, flight attendants. Yes, ma'am.
How about a built-in
Built-in PC, yes. Yes.
A mini kitchen.
A what?
Mini kitchen.
A mini kitchen.
There's a built-in PC.
All right.
Mini kitchen.
Mini kitchen. I'm going to take one more. What? No, you got all that. I do a listening skills seminar. You might like. Okay, let me cut it off at that. All right. Show me, and all of you out there at the other sites, please kind of work with us on this. What if the camera can go on? If the camera can go on the chalkboard, and maybe tight where we could see this, what do you see about those that might give you a clue if you're a salesperson and you know that these are the desires of the prospect? What all has this told you? Anything?
Comfort.
Has it told you anything? Does it tell you that people buy more on emotion or logic? I mean, virtually everything seems to be emotionally driven. Emotionally, as opposed to even physiologically. I mean, finally someone said, built-in kitchen. We finally are going to get some food. I didn't see anyone mention a bathroom. Yeah. We older folks think of bathroom first, bar is second. But you see, it's really interesting. But help me out at the other sites and all, and just speak up. What else did this tell us if we're a professional salesperson? What has this just revealed us? Someone answer.
Listen to the customer.
Got to listen to the customer. Ask the customer.
Give them what they want.
Give them what they want.
Use emotion to make yourself.
Yeah, use emotion. Because, see, we've just found out. Do you think there's engineers that would probably go cut their throat if they knew this was the buying motivation? They think it's all this technical stuff. See? But what this says to us, if we're a salesperson, it says, hey, aren't people really different? Because you see, if I'd have made the list, if this had been my list, there's not a one of my top 3 there. Not a one. Not a one. Do some of you, the rest of you have a top 3 that none of them are up there? See? See? Isn't that interesting? Well, what do most salespeople, amateur salespeople say? They're looking through this tunnel vision. It's like, well, surely they would want what I want. Wrong. Wrong. Well, let's leave this as something to use as a little launching pad for us. Let's use this for something to think about as we progress through this. So, how do pros prepare? Okay. Let's start with how to go to your next segment. How do pros prepare? Pros prepare first by having plenty of product knowledge. And also having access to the product knowledge. Many products are too technical today for us to possibly know all we're going to need to know that the customer might need to know. Therefore, we need to be sure we have our laptop or that we have let our fingers do the walking, or just the person to call back at the company or the headquarters to find out what the customer wants to know when they ask. So we know in our preparation we need to have that. And the next we need to know is information about our client. All you can find out about the client that is would be reasonably helpful to you when it's time to call on the person or to do your presentation. Or if you're in a business where your prospects or customers come in, it's still the same way. You need to know how important it is that you know information about the client, as is evidenced by this room of people who all have this diverse ideas about what they would most like to have in their airplane. Client information, and the next is sort of obvious, but it's our mental and our physical condition. We want to be mentally and physically prepared to meet the client. No different than an athlete might be that's going to play a big game. We need to be rested. We need to have our uniform in shape, our appearance, all of the things we need to do to make it easier for the person to buy. Our appearance, our physical condition, and if it, I don't mean it to sound a little rah-rah, but you really need to have yourself psyched up. You need to have some self-talk and psyched up. I'm going to offer this person excellent product or service. Or this person who I have not yet met is going to be glad we have done business, because we're going to show them that we're going to give value and service that will keep them coming back to us and keep them telling others about us. Does that make sense? That's basically our marching order. Those are the items. I mentioned what the acronym is, and all I am going to do here is just be a conduit for you of ideas that I've gotten over the while in calling on a lot of people and making a lot of sales. I would recommend that you make sure that you build a list that you keep as your... I'm not going to ask you to make a lot of lists, but I'm going to ask you tonight, if you're going to be a professional, 3 or 4 lists or sets of 3 by 5 cards that you can keep, which becomes your whole manual for professional sales skills manual. And what the first list needs to be is a list that you continually build as a sales professional of what are things I need to know from a client or a prospect to be more effective as a person that serves them, that is in a consulting role to help them so they'll want to buy from us. Because I look at selling more as a consulting role. My first mentor, when I was president of a cassette company and I recorded his tapes, he was on the Johnny Carson show. His name was Fred Herman. And Fred Herman was sort of a mentor to all the great sales trainers, even today. And Fred Herman was on the Tonight Show, and Johnny Carson asked him, said, "Fred, I understand you're the nation's greatest sales trainer." And Fred said, "Well, I'm honored that some people have said that." And Johnny Carson said, "What makes a professional salesperson?" And Fred Herman said, "A professional salesperson is someone that knows how to find out what people want or need and then helps them get it. Simple. That's it." And when you go to sales training, they don't typically teach you that. They start teaching you all the things to do to the prospect, as opposed to going in with the idea, I'm here to help you, and hopefully I have a product or service that you need, and if not, I'm out of here, and maybe I can come back again another day. Does that make sense? That's the name of the game. That's the name of the game in professional selling today. So you need to sort of get right to it so you know what you can do to satisfy their wants and needs. Well, that's how we prepare. And on our next graphic, we come up with how do we review wants and needs. And if I may tell a story that happened in my life 10 years ago. It was a marvelous lesson. And I want to share it with you tonight because you've all seen this experience. It's been in a different way, but you've all had the experience. I was jogging in downtown Denver, staying at the Brown Palace Hotel. I'd done a seminar that day. I was real pumped. Put on my short shorts, running shorts, my New Balance shoes, my Bruce Springsteen Born in the USA t-shirt. And I come upon a family-owned office supply store. And I'd had a successful day. I was very happy. And I thought about something I had been lusting for. Did any of you ever lust for anything? I mean, they say you shouldn't lust, but I lusted for this. You all know what it means. Jimmy Carter said we shouldn't lust. I was lusting for, now you're going to think this is a little kinky. I was lusting for a Mont Blanc pen. Anyone in the room or in the building, in your building, anyone own a Mont Blanc pen? Anyone like to own a Mont Blanc pen? I really wanted a Mont Blanc pen. And then I wanted to go learn to snow ski. And then learn to skydive. I wanted to do all those things. So I go in the store, and I want to try to describe it to you exactly as this happened. I walked in the store. Keep in mind, it was an old family-owned, kind of old-timey office supply place. Probably been bulldozed down now. There was a glass counter and a clerk, a young man and young woman, behind the counter. The young man was at the cash register counting the cash. It was near the end of the day. The young woman was doing some inventory. I walked in and startled them, I think. And they both looked at me and smiled. Now let me do a little sidebar here. They were both very sharp young people. Very polite, very mannerly, very well groomed, very polite. But they had no clue about selling. They were what we call clerks. Don't we hate clerks in a store? They both greeted me. And then the young woman turned and said, "May I help you?" And I said, "Well, yes, I'd like to see a Mont Blanc pen." And she said, "Well, sir, there they are." And I looked down, and there they were. 12 or so Mont Blanc pens. I had to keep from drooling. It was difficult. So she then said that magic word or words. She said, "Which one would you like to see?" Now some bad things are about to start happening. I said, "Well, I really don't know. There's so many of them." And she said, "Well, I've got the rollerball, I have the regular fountain pen, I have the standard." And I said, "Well, I don't." Now she's putting my feet to the fire. "Which one do you want to see?" And I wanted to see all of them, right? I mean, it's like if you go in a jewelry store and you're looking at an engagement ring, boy, they just pull that stuff out and throw it all over the counter for you to look at. I wanted to touch and feel it, didn't I? Emotion. See? This was not a logical thing to buy. I mean, a Mont Blanc pen, I figured out whether you measure by inch or by grams, this is the most expensive thing in that whole store. Would you agree? And probably the most expensive thing I've ever bought except my kids. If you took by ounces, grams, or inches. So I finally said, "Well, let me see the rollerball," and pointed it. She pulled out this measly rollerball, put it on the counter with a nice pad of paper, and turned around and went back to her inventory. Now tell me, what do you think happened to my desire to buy a Mont Blanc pen? I was at what salespeople call a will-buy line. If you're looking at a graph, I had reached the will-buy line. I started departing from the will-buy line real fast. And let me tell you, remember, people buy on emotion? Because there was virtually no logic in owning a Mont Blanc pen. I started losing interest at high speed. And I said, "Thank you very much." And after trying it, and I turned and walked away, desperately wanting a Mont Blanc pen. It was 8 years. Where'd it go? Who borrowed? He borrowed my Mont Blanc pen. Be sure and get his driver's license and hold it. It was 8 years before I bought a Mont Blanc pen. And guess when I bought it? I bought it for myself as a gift on my 66th birthday. I returned from Skydive Center and drove straight to the office supply house where I'd been eyeing them in Phoenix, and I bought me a Mont Blanc pen. Let me borrow your. Don't you have a handout piece? Can we get this gentleman a handout piece? So this is it. So I gave it to me as a reward for being fool enough to jump out of an airplane. That's what I did. Okay, thank you for listening to that. But see, the example that gives is sad. That the young people just didn't know how to handle a person that wanted to buy anything. Okay. Let's go to the next section, which is, or are we already there? Are we review desires and needs? Oh, okay. Now, this is the part of the sales process that is the most important of the 4 steps. The most important part of the 4 steps is spending time finding out what people's desires and needs are. Because people will not buy anything they don't desire or need. Period. And salespeople all over, people that call them clerks, will attempt to sell someone something before having established a desire or a need, one or the other. Now, the interesting part of this is, how many of you have sold something somewhere? How many of you have worked in a store or sold something? Okay. Answer this question for me. Have you ever been presenting a product or a service to someone and you realize that your product or service probably has a feature or a benefit for the prospect that the prospect is totally unaware of? They don't know about that at all. See, I had an old Mac Plus, the old original Mac Plus, 10 years ago. Didn't even have a hard drive. Had a tiny RAM memory, and that's all. If you wanted to transfer something, you fill up, you push in your PC disk, download it from the memory, pull out a little floppy, and put in another disk. See, I didn't know I needed a hard drive till someone showed me a hard drive. I said, wow, do I need that? What's a hard drive? I didn't know that. Oh, it's because you don't have to do this all the time. Oh, incredible. Give me a hard drive. See? It's like features. I got myself a new car a few months ago. And this car has some features in it that I didn't know I needed till I got them, and now don't try to take them away from me. Some really cool things that people get in it, and I say, hey, let me show you this cool thing. And I show them these cool things that I didn't know existed. Okay, be sure you put that in your mind. Because in the process, because I'm going to spend a few minutes on this, this is the most critical part of the sales process. First is, be a consultant. It's on your sheet. Remember, you're not selling. You're trying to discover wants and needs. And then the most important thing for salespeople to learn is, how do I find out wants or needs? How do I become a consultant? How do I start? Well, you start by knowing questions to ask, probing questions, consulting questions, interview questions, need development questions. These are called all sorts of things. But they're all to find out customers' wants and needs. And someone once said, you do it by knowing the 6 magic words. And this is the other list I'm going to ask you to do. And the 6 magic words are who, what, when, why, where, and how. Now, who can tell me something unique about those 6 words if I ask you questions that contain those words? Yes? They can't say no. And they're called open-ended questions. I have some pros. Have some people from Alpha Kappa Psi here, I can tell you that. I got my Alpha Kappa Psi cup, business fraternity. Y'all like my new cup? The next list I'd like you to create. And you start this list and you continue building it as long as you're in sales, practice development, business development, whatever you want to call it. You see physicians do it, dentists do it, lawyers do it. All professions do practice development. The only difference is when we sell, we do the transaction, take the money right then and there, sometimes standing up, sometimes sitting down. But I can't present my product or service because you'll find in the next few minutes the thing I'm adamant about is that you don't ever show and tell. You do not ever present your product or service until you're through with this process. Now, little caveat here. If you're selling shoes in a shoe store and a person comes in and needs a new pair of work shoes, it isn't that difficult and doesn't take that long. However, if you by chance ask the person, tell me about what kind of shoes you want. Tell me about what you're going to be using the shoes for. Where are you going to be wearing them? And that's indelible in my mind to ask a few questions, even if you're selling shoes. Because I got a call at home one night at 9:30 o'clock from a young man who happened to go to Arizona State University. He had been through my seminar on the sales process. And his boss about freaked out because a woman came in and wanted a pair of running shoes. And the young man said, well, I'm going to try the need development questions. He asked the woman about 3 questions, took her back, fitted her for the shoes for running, ended up also selling her a pair to take when she traveled with her spouse on the road when she needs something to stay at the Ritz-Carlton Laguna Niguel, and also some El Cheapos for when she was going to be running on the canal when it was muddy in Phoenix. And the lady walked out with 3 pair of shoes. Of course, someone told me women all buy shoes, but that's what you're supposed to do. I've never quite understood that. But anyway, that's what happened. And the young man was an Arizona State University student. And he was so happy, called me at home at night, embarrassed, and said, Mr. Johnson, I got to tell you what happened, and I got to tell you my boss about fainted. And that's how I did it. So regardless of what you're selling, don't take it too lightly. Now, you're going to develop a list. Or maybe you're going to develop a set of 3x5 cards. And this is going to become your whole revenue source. Because by knowing the appropriate questions to ask the prospect to find out desires and needs, it's suddenly going to make your selling incredibly easy and a lot of fun. So, what you do, by the way, one of you said it's because these are open questions that cannot be answered yes or no, basically. Doesn't mean you can't ask questions that are answered yes or no, but it's better if you don't. And why is that? Tell me, please. Why is that? Why would you rather, yes, ma'am?
You get some more information and you get to know their needs and wants.
You want them to talk. Because if I ask you one question and you start answering it, then what may pop up? Another reasonable question that I might follow on with. And what's happening during this process is that a bonding is taking place between you and the prospect. And this, my friend Ron Willingham calls integrity selling. And what is so different in this from the way we can go around the valley and find people doing to us? What do they do, typically? They hound you. Good choice of words. You see, in 1985, my business, my selling life changed over a very short period of time. Because a man that became one of my key mentors, his name's Ron Willingham, and he wrote this book, Prentice Hall. It's called The Bestseller. And Ron Willingham, through his book and through knowing him, and I was retained to consult with him in putting together a training package to go with his book. And it was like an awakening for me. And I'd been selling pretty successfully for 35 or more years. And I said, I can't believe, how was I ever successful? Because how I sold was how Ron Willingham talks about how people used to sell in the, quote, olden days. And it was called stimulus response selling. Get someone's attention, start showing you how jazzy their product is, how it's the best thing going, how they've got the best price ever, and if you buy today, you get an extra $1 off. And you see, you would never do that with anyone today. If the young woman at that store had said to me, oh, yeah, glad you're interested in a Mont Blanc. We've got them $10 off today. I would have thrown up. I would have been offended. I mean, I have on my Bruce Springsteen t-shirt. See? I'm a high-class dude. Okay, the point is made. That's a stimulus response. That's a phony thing. If we haven't established desire and need, what difference the price make? And a classy woman like this would be offended if she goes in an upscale shoe store and they say, oh, can't wait to show you this. We've got these on sale today. Half price. And she'd say, who said I need it on sale? See, that's stimulus response. Trying to stimulate you with, open the Sunday paper and look at the ads. That's what it all is, stimulus response. Buy it today and get X off. Doesn't say what wonderful things this will do for you. Okay. Develop your list of your wants and needs, how to find out wants or needs, and then ask them in a reasonable order. Ask the people the questions that fit your industry, that fit your product or service, whatever it may be. I'm working right now with a small firm in Phoenix and doing training for just 2 salespeople. And it's very interesting because their product is very simple. And it doesn't take but about 3 questions with their prospect. Whereas if I was a manager of a large building construction project, this process might last a year of meetings and meetings and meetings and how we talk through this project. We have Arizona Public Service as a sponsor tonight. And Arizona Public Service does projects that may take years. And their estimators and their engineers have to meet for months to determine what they're going to do to fill the power needs for this prospect or this client. And that's very important. And with deregulation coming now, it's going to become more important for them to do this. So whatever business you're in, if you're an accountant, if you're an architect, if you're a physician, if you're a financial planner, whatever you are, it's going to take a process to get to where you're absolutely sure you're filling the desire and the need for this prospect. Does this make sense? Develop a list. Develop the list of the items that you want to ask your prospect and keep on keeping on and keep building on it. And the last item is observe the social style of the prospect. The social style. Show me your hand if that term means something to you. Okay. Starting clear back Hippocrates through Dr. William Marston at Harvard in 1929, his book that became the granddaddy book for psychologists, Emotions of Normal People. There's been a buildup of wonderful programs that teach us how to observe the behavior of our prospect or customer and determine from observing their behavior how we need to adjust our behavior to blend with their behavior for better rapport, for better bonding. Do we have the graphic up on the styles? Can we bring the graphic up on the 4 quadrants? This is a very simplistic form of the 4 quadrants of social style. This has been my favorite seminar to conduct for 15 years in a 3-hour version. How to learn to develop and bond better with others in any situation. And these are the 4 basic social clues of the social quadrants. The upper right-hand corner, the more direct, the more aggressive, the people, they make decisions quickly. They're more controlled in their behavior. The upper left-hand corner people emote. They show their feelings and emotions a lot more. They also talk fast. They do things fast. The ones above the horizontal line do everything faster. Fred, I'm going to ask you to keep that graphic up a while because they're making some notes, but I will tell you all that if you're further interested in this, and I may mention this another time, there's a few items I'm going to mention if you want. My email address is at the bottom. That's my by far preferred mode of communication. My fax number. If you want this piece, all you have to do is email me. In fact, I'm going to get ahead of myself here a minute, but we're going to have a question and answer at the end of this. And I encourage everyone that has questions at all the sites, because you're going to be able to phone in, and because from 7 to 7:30 approximately, we're going to have strictly question and answer from all the sites around the state. So all questions you have that are reasonable, clean, will be answered. And I will not necessarily answer them now. They will be answered. Your moderator in your room will take them if you'll write them out, and it's being arranged that they will all be fed to me, and I will answer all the questions, probably in mass. It's going to take me a while to do it, but I want to do it. If you want this graphic, just say you'd like the styles graphic, and then I'll know what it is. Lower left-hand corner people do things slower, make decisions slower. Doesn't mean they're slower thinkers. There's a reason. Lower left-hand corner people are very relationship-oriented. Upper left-hand corner people are very intuitive. They're dreamers. They're the fun bunch. The upper right-hand corner people that are very direct are very task-oriented. They want to get to the bottom line. They want to get to it right now. No fluff. Your lower right-hand corner people that those 3 words describe just sort of fairly succinctly. The bottom right-hand people are the ones that are the real thinkers. They make decisions slower. They're stereotyped sometimes as accountants and architects. Stereotype, not necessarily true. Don't say I said that that's what they are, because I guarantee you I've met some wild and crazy men and women that are lower right-hand corner. But be aware of the style of your prospect. Be sensitive to that. Let's go back to the airplane thing a minute. See, you people that on the airplane items, I can almost tell you what your style was by something you chose. I mean, cushy seats. Come on. Cushy seats is going to be probably an upper left-hand quadrant person. Now, the weird thing is I know the woman that said recliner seats, and she is definitely not an upper left-hand corner or lower right-hand corner woman, but she chose that, so it's not totally accurate. Fuel efficient, probably a person below the line, probably a person lower right-hand corner, thinking of fuel efficiency and such. The person that said about the phone shows pretty much that they're probably a talker, upper left-hand corner. They want to be sure they're a people person. So just be aware, because these people are all motivated differently. The people on the right-hand side of the vertical line are more into goal setting. They're more into tangibles. And people to the left of the vertical line are far more into people. Lower right-hand corner people are into facts and data. That's what gets them excited. So there's great differences in all the four styles. People above the line, all the people above the line are very into getting recognition. People below the line aren't that into recognition. Lower right-hand corner are more like, just give me the money and let me get out of here, sort of thing. So be sensitive to the social style of your customer. So before you do your presentation, you know their style. You know sort of how to blend, adapt your behavior to fit their style. Okay. That's our wants and needs. I wanted to be sure and give credit to a guy in Tempe, Arizona by the name of Don Thorin that in 1974 introduced me to this. And I've said it's the strongest thing I learned in my business career. Since then, it helped me become a better salesperson. It helped me become a better manager. It definitely helped me to become a better parent. Because I had 3 children that were teen and preteen about that time. Got a person in the room that knows all 3 of them. Do you think all 3 of them are just alike? Wrong. I learned that I better parent to those 3 kids into more their style instead of parenting to them generic. And I got to say, I feel successful at this, knock on wood. So, be aware of the style of the different people that you're dealing with. And now our next graphic is we're going to go to the presentation. And this is the part that's so critical, is how to give an organized presentation. We're going to assume at this point that you have found out all that you know so far that you need to know about their desires and needs. And you can see how you can build up questions as you become more experienced, like a lawyer practices law and a surgeon practices surgery, and they get better every time. And you need the list. You need to make your list. Because it's just like the captains. I was at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport last weekend. I spent a lot of time at DFW. And you see a lot of American airline pilots going through there. Part of it's because every 6 months they have to go to the flight training center and fly the simulators for 3 days, every 6 months. They lose an average of 8 pounds. That's better than Jenny Craig. They lose an average of 8 pounds in 3 days for 3 days sweating it out, flying the simulator, going through all of the things that, quote, might happen. And then they go back out and fire up their MD-80 or fire up their 757, and they still have a checklist of 143 items. And how many of them do you think, maybe they've been flying for 25 years, 40,000 hours, how many of them do you think they take the checklist and said, oh, Charlie, we don't need this today. We'll just fire it up and hope we can get to Phoenix. No, I don't want them to. Why do they do that? I mean, wouldn't you think they'd know? Won't you think they would know? No. It's because we can't possibly remember all we know. How many of us would like our paycheck contingent upon passing our 7th grade geography exam? I wouldn't. That's why you need your checklist. You need your checklist to review. Review it every now and then. Pick up on those questions you might have forgotten about. So you're prepared to make your presentation. Because, ladies and gentlemen, at this point in the sales process, the 4-step process, you should know by now, after the who, what, when, why, where, and how questions and the questions you're going to ask, when you exit that step and move into giving the presentation of your product or service, you should know by now if it's likely you're going to make the sale or you're not going to make the sale. And I will candidly say, I can't think of a time in the past 15 years since I started using this religiously. I cannot tell you a time that I didn't know when I got through with this if I'm probably going to sell or if I'm going to save them time and me by saying, thank you very much. I really don't think our product or service is appropriate for you at this time, but would it be okay if I keep your name, give you a call, keep you updated on new services we have, and thank you very much. Because once we go into our presentation, we're through asking desire and needs questions. Now, will some maybe pop up? Yes. And I hope when they do, you remember that as a trigger, add it to my list. And I will stop right in the middle of a presentation with a prospect and I'll pull out my trusty 3x5 cards that are always with me, even when I'm jogging with my Dallas Cowboy blue, my blue shorts and my Bruce Springsteen t-shirt. And they're there in my hip pocket with my, not my Mont Blanc pen. I have an El Cheapo I go on the canal with. But I hope you will remember that because you're always building and adding to your repertoire of intelligence because that's what it is. So we're ready to do the presentation. The first rule is focus only on the wants, desires, and needs of the prospect. If you start focusing on items that you want to talk about, you have suddenly gotten yourself off in the rut of the clerks as opposed to a professional. You're suddenly reverting to stimulus response selling, which is not professional. So it's real important. Focus only on their wants and needs. Oh, by the way, remember at the beginning we were talking about it when I said to you, for those of you who have sold before, I said, have you ever known a situation where you had a special feature or special benefit of a product and you know they don't even know about it? Like I didn't know about a hard drive or a Mac Plus. How do you do that? You make sure you've created a question in your review process that will get them to thinking about, wouldn't that be nice? And then it becomes what my friend Ron Willingham calls discovery learning, the man that wrote the book. Because you're going to let them discover there's something new they need. And then, when you tell them about it, it is suddenly their idea. Oh, I'd been thinking about that. That's just what I want. And we want to also be aware, in the Ron Willingham book, the bestseller, he talks about the 4 things. Please write this down. The 4 things that motivate people to buy. And it's the 4 P's. And the 4 P's are pride, pleasure, profit, and peace of mind. Pride, pleasure, profit, and peace of mind. Those are the 4 motivators. And any buying decision is made by some mix of those. You see, my Mont Blanc pen purchase was primarily motivated by pride. The pride of owning a top-of-the-line writing instrument. So when I pull out my writing instrument with a prospect or a customer, they don't see an El Cheapo pen from Joe's Savings and Loan or Mary's Real Estate. They see a high-class pen. It's an ego trip. It's an ego trip. I don't know. I've never been accused of having an ego. Except by my wife, kids, and all my customers. But other than that. So be aware of that. Those are the triggers. Those are the motivators. And it's important to bring it up at this time because when you start thinking about focusing on the wants and needs, focus on the things that you've decided based on their social style. Remember the social styles. And if I could mention one thing about the social styles, we just went over it a minute. As you looked at that graphic of those 12 words in the 4 quadrants, many of you may have said to yourself, gee, I look at all those words and I'm kind of all of those. And probably if I ask everyone in the room, if you see a word in each quadrant that you think identifies you, you'd probably say yes. And I hope so. I hope you're each a nice blend of all. And that's good. But what's really good is if you find out which one you live in, which is your home most of the time. So you know where you are when you're dealing with a prospect who is at a different quadrant that you might be polarized from. So it will tell you, because with my daughter Julie, I have to reach way down for my daughter Julie because I'm upper right-hand quadrant. My daughter Julie is lower left-hand quadrant. My son Jay is lower right-hand quadrant. My daughter Jill is upper left-hand quadrant. So between the 4 of us, we're each a different quadrant. So it's your job to try to be as versatile as you can. But try to be real careful if you're in one quadrant, if you think about this and deal with this or have any books or have read it. Your main job is to try to be versatile and move around to get along with all people based on what their quadrant is. Okay. Now, we begin doing our presentation. And the key ingredient, had a gentleman sit down next to me on an airplane a couple or 3 years ago, and he ended up being president of one of the big long-distance carriers. And I told him I'd been in Dallas doing a sales seminar, and he just quickly asked, he was an upper right-hand corner person, he quickly said, oh, good, tell me, what do you think is the most important thing a salesperson should know? And I said, oh, how to ask questions that will determine desires and needs. I said, that's pretty good. He said, what's the second most important thing? I'm starting to say, hey, can you give me a purchase order? I don't intend to do a seminar with that. He said, what's the second? And at this time, I didn't know who he was or what he did. I knew for sure he was a salesman. No doubt about that. What's the second most important thing? And I said, the second most important thing for a salesperson to know is how to do a feature benefit conversion. You see, people are busy selling features, and they don't understand that you don't sell features. You sell what the feature will do for the customer. See, what the hard drive would do for me, you see. It wasn't to own a hard drive because it was 2 megs. It was because of what it would save me in time and effort and security of my data, right? And I suddenly thought of my first boss, my first mentor in a little town of Dalhart, Texas, in a little Firestone store, town of 4,000 people. Worked in that store for 3 years for Kaler Cadell, my first mentor. And I will never forget one day in our store, Kaler Cadell showed me a visual aid to help sell tires. And it's when the radial tires started coming out. And this was the big deal. And everybody would talk about the gauge of these radials and all this business. And the steel belts, that business, which meant nothing to me. But he had a little wooden visual aid. And it created a little pyramid by putting these little blocks that were different lengths, like Lincoln Logs or like a child's blocks. And it built them up. And you played like the visual was, this is the tire on the left front tire of your left front wheel of your car. And you built up these blocks. And these blocks all pictured something that you treasure the security of. The whole purpose was a visual aid to show the benefit of the steel-belted tires without talking about the gauge of the belts. And the top thing was your wife and children, you see. The safety feature, that the benefit of which was protecting all your loved ones. And I was 15 years old, and that just blew my mind. And that's the first time I learned about feature-benefit conversion. So as you have a product or your service, this is your third list that I hope you'll have. And your third list is a list of converting features to benefits. And it's almost like flashcards we did as little children. 2 + 2 = what does it? 4. Have the feature, but be sure you share with the prospect the benefit where they can see the benefit. I'm going to ask each of you, everybody wake up out at the remote sites. Everybody wake up. Going to play a game here. And I want you to enjoy this game. I've got a young woman right here. And I'm going to ask her to participate. And I want all of you to listen. I'm going to give her a word, and I want her to tell the whole room, just unload on us the whole description, if you'll do that. Are you ready? Giraffe.
Tall, spotted, graceful, fast, beautiful, exotic, Egyptian.
Okay. Everybody see a giraffe? Anybody have any problems seeing a giraffe? All right, I've got a young man up here. Are you ready? You're going to have to push down the button so you can talk. I'm going to throw you a word. I want you to describe it. Ready? Fire engine.
Red, large, heavy, lots of equipment, hoses, spotted dog.
Good. Dalmatian dog. Okay. Now, I'd like this young man right here. Okay, are you ready? Now you're going to need to push down your button. Conejo.
Conejo.
Excuse me. We don't see. We saw the giraffe, didn't we? We saw the fire engine, didn't we? We didn't see the rabbit. The Spanish speaking people see the rabbit. If we don't speak Spanish, we don't see the rabbit. If you don't explain to your prospect, paint the picture of what it is that's the benefit, you're wasting your breath. Like the person telling me, you've got to have this hard drive. You really need this baby. It's a whole meg. I didn't know what a meg was. Let me take you back to reality. Let me take you on a visit. You're with a friend, and you go down because you're going to buy a new stereo receiver for your stereo system. Your receiver blew up. You're going to buy a new receiver. And this person is showing you these receivers, and you're walked over, hopefully not the one that's on special today, because that just shows it's a clerk instead of a professional. You're brought up to this very receiver. This is one of our finest receivers, and here you see the faceplate in these pretty colors. This is the on-off switch, and note it's kind of muted and padded and feels sexy. And this is the volume control. And then we've got the AFC button. AFC? What's AFC? Oh, AFC. Excuse me, I should have told you. AFC means automatic frequency control. Oh! Excuse me, I don't understand automatic frequency control. Oh! See, what the person has given me is two features. The person expanded on the feature. Did I see the giraffe or the fire engine? No, I'm seeing conejos. And I said, well, what's that? And this person says, Automatic frequency control is an electronic lock that grabs an FM signal and holds on to it because FM signals, unlike AM, tend to drift. Oh, really? Did you see the giraffe or the fire engine yet? Not yet. Say, well, see, man, you don't get this. This is automatic frequency control. And then I say to this person, oh, you mean if I'm sitting on the couch with my wife, having a little glass of wine, that I don't have to get up if the station drifts? He said, yes. And I said, yes. Or you're sitting at dinner and you just settle down and you're relaxing and it drifts off and I don't have to get up. He said, that's right. And I said, yes. See, that's the benefit. That's the fire engine. That's the giraffe. Please, if you're selling, don't ever assume the person sees the benefit. Also, don't be caught in the trap of using acronyms or buzzwords unless you are absolutely, totally certain, positive, that the person knows what AFC means. This button is the magic button. When you push this, when the FM station tries to drift, you don't have to get up from dinner or get up from the couch. Oh, that's cool. See? Please, write down the note. No acronyms, no buzzwords, and paint the word picture. Okay. The final step here. Oh, someone call my attention. I'm sorry. Ice water warning. Very important. This is like a spare parachute. Customers have this rude habit of asking you a price prematurely. And this is where you have the opportunity to get ice water dumped on your whole process. A question that is asked during your presentation concerning price, it's critically important that you, at that moment, temporarily avoid responding to a price question. You want to present the price only when you've established the value and the quality and the service that you offer. I take phone calls. I'm a one-man show in my business. And people call me and they say, hey, you're the guy that does speeches or seminars. And I say, yeah, I am. What do you charge? Now, do you think I answer them? Do you think I tell them what I charge? No. What I say is, oh, thank you for calling. What is your name, please? See, they don't even tell you the name. How much you charge? See, anyone ever shop for something? What do you charge? What do you charge? What do you charge? Standard question. Perfectly legitimate question. And I'm going to answer the question, but not yet. And this is, by the way, an integrity process. I'm going to first ask, I'm sorry, thanks so much for calling. What is your name, please? Oh, my name's John. Oh, John, thank you for calling. John, may I ask a question? Yeah. Where did you get my name? Oh, I got it out of the Yellow Pages. Oh, I got it from a friend. Oh, I got it off the web. Something. See, I got to do my marketing research real quick. Where'd they get my name? My next question. Now, may I ask you all a question? Is it reasonable that I ask those three questions? Is that reasonable? My next question. Tell me about your meeting. Oh, well, we've got some people going to be in New Orleans. We're going to do a convention. Oh, it's great. I love New Orleans. Love Canal Street. Tell me, do you have spouses come along to the meeting? Yes, I do. Oh, yeah, we do that. Bring the spouses. I say, Do you want a keynote speaker or lunch or dinner? Or more maybe a seminar? I hadn't thought of that. Remember I told you about discovery learning a minute ago, if we ask the right questions? Someone help me. What do you think, if you're that person and you're calling about a speaker for your meeting, what do you think may have just gone on in your mind? Someone tell me. Tell me. Help me out. Well, but what did I do? Remember discovery learning? I was building a relationship, asking about their meeting, didn't want to talk about me, wanted to talk about their meeting, didn't start telling them about me, wanted to find out about their meeting. And by the way, this is going to go on for a while. Not with you all here, but it goes on all the time in my phone conversations. Because I'm going to ask more about the meeting. I'm going to ask, who have you had recently as a speaker for your meetings? That's one of my last questions. Because that is going to tell me a lot. What's it going to tell me? Someone help me. What kind of people? What kind of people are used to hearing? But what's the big thing it's going to tell me? What is their budget? Because if they say it's John Glenn, or if they say it's Zig, or if they say it's Troy Aikman, I know we're talking about a big budget. But what have I planted by asking, do you have spouses? What was I planning when I said, do you do seminars and maybe keynotes, breakfast, lunch? What am I doing? I'm letting them maybe start thinking, I've got this little guy that talks funny out in Arizona, got a Texas accent, and he does all of those things. What a deal. I could probably get him really cheap, get him to hang around and do 2 or 3 things. Do you think I'd like that? Yes. Do you think now it's okay for me to avoid telling him a price? Because see, I couldn't tell him a price. Because if he had been having the meeting on Maui in January or in Dubuque in January, do you think the price might be different? Yes. I don't want to go to Dubuque in January. I don't want to go to Dubuque anytime. See? Now, is it an integrity process to have avoided the price question till I am able to wrap a presentation of what I offer and say, let me give you an idea if you're interested. Why don't we see? So that's how you worry about, why you worry about the ice water warning. Because the amateur would say, oh yeah, I charge $50 or whatever, you see. You need to develop what's going on. And then we go to the close. We go to my strategy for securing an order and a future relationship. First thing is your comfort zone. I want to help you have some ideas, or maybe at this time tonight, figure out how you would like to have, for those of you who sell, and there's some of you in the room that sell all the time, find a way to ask for the order, a phraseology, a method that you're comfortable with. But when you've presented your product, you've done your feature-benefit conversions, you've done them in a reasonable order. I like to say they're in a funnel process, where the large things you present at the first are the very most important, and you watch out for their social style. If they're above the line, you want to do things quickly, you move through 2 or 3, and then ask them for the business. And I'm going to beg you, from my experience, find something you're very comfortable with as a way to ask them for their business, and then the minute they hit the will buy line, that's when you ask. and you want to ask for the business when you know they're ready to buy. And if you've done your presentation successfully, and if you, during the presentation, have received their concurrence that, yes, this is a good feature, yes, this does fill my need or my want, and then you have momentum going, a positive flow of acceptance. So when it's time to ask for the order, and let me just give you 2 or 3 ideas. One is you can just ask. Well, I think if I've answered all your questions, if it's okay with you, let me go ahead and write this up. Or you might say something that gives them a choice. I believe if I've answered all your questions, we have this. Would you prefer it in red or in green? Would you prefer something we deliver by the end of this week, or would early next week be better? Figure out something you're comfortable with in selling and do it every time so you don't have to think about it. It's like a quarterback that goes out, bends down under center, sees a change in the defense, and calls an audible. You got to do it. You don't have time to go study the playbook or go talk to the coach. You got to do it. That's why those American airline pilots go back every 6 months, drill, practice, do it. So you just know. That's why you don't need to have asking for the orders a complex process, because it isn't a complex process. And then remember, another quote that I think was incredible is that you remember you don't sell in the close. You close after you've sold. You finish the presentation before you ask for the business. You don't do it prematurely. And then the last is you make sure that you keep the doors open. You make sure that if the answer is no, that you can leave with your ego and your integrity intact. That's critically important. That's why it's so important that you, when we talked about the review process, the questioning process, if you find out that this is not a prospect, you leave and thank them for their time and go find someone who does need your product or service. The most wonderful thing that happened to me when I changed my style of selling to this style of selling in 1985, I not only doubled my income for the first time in my life, but I found it was so comfortable because I got through with the customer quicker. I went to the point that when I was ready to present my product or service, it could happen that quick, and they'd say, let's do it. And I don't think I've had to ask for the order very much. It most likely has just happened. They just said, this really looks good to me. When could we get started? Because you see, I use only one closing tool, whether I'm on the phone or whether I'm in person. My closing tool is my calendar. And when it's time for me to ask for the order, I reach over, pull my calendar, open it up, and I say, if we were going to do this, what days would work best for you? Oh, I think we don't want to do Monday or Friday. I said, hey, why don't we do a Tuesday? Would you like to do the morning? And I'm already writing down. And that's all the hassle there is. Well, a couple or three things I want to mention to you that I want to offer. First, I talked about the social styles. And I have a sort of a success profile that's a 24-word block that will reveal your social style and might be very helpful to you, and it's going to be a gift from me. This little report yields a 20-plus page success profile on you, either as a manager or salesperson. So if you get one of these, I'm going to want you to say, I want it as a manager, executive, or I want it as a salesperson. And I'll generate it and mail it to you. All of you around the state that are involved, I'll mail that to you. You'll need to email me to fax you the form. So that's all you have to do. Email me or fax me and say, I'd like to call it the Styles form, and be sure and say, I want sales or I want management. Now the next thing you must do when you get it is remember to write down, print very clearly your address, preferably home, because this is for no one's eyes but yours. If you're at a company or someone that opens your mail, I don't want it to go to them because this is personal information. All of us need mentors and motivation. There's a book, The Fine Art of Doing Better, Zig Ziglar, Mark Victor Hansen, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, some of the greatest people of the past century. That is great reading material, and it's offered on the back of your worksheet. There's an order form that shows some special offers, and some free material that can be sent to you. Preferably fax that to me with your name and address printed. And this book is a bonus gift that's 20 some odd bucks. It's a bonus gift with several of those if you care about them. So as we think about, boy, you all have been great, because it's tough to sit for an hour and a half. I want to close with one of my favorite things is when Gandhi stepped down as Prime Minister of India, and he changed that country and he changed the lives of a lot of people. And in Gandhi's farewell speech before he was assassinated the following day, he closed his speech by admonishing the people of India and the Parliament of India. And he said, keep your thoughts positive, because your thoughts become your words. And then he said, keep your behaviors positive, because your behaviors become your habits. And then he said, keep your habits positive, because they become your values. And keep your values positive, because they become your destiny. And then he closed by saying life isn't a dress rehearsal. He said, with your positive convictions, you can change the world. And we're not going to change the world here. But with your positive thinking and your determination and your convictions, you can set your life on even a better course. When my daughter Jill was in high school, she had this great poster up in her room that I still love. And it says what I close to say to you: the best is yet to be. Thanks to all of you. You've been great. Thank you very much.